Good evening, everyone. I'm Paolo Lanza. I'm Chief Innovation IT Manager of Acquedotto Pugliese. For us, it's a great honor to host this event. And first of all, I bring the apologize from our president and her greetings to everyone. And you know, I believe that this talk, this kind of event, are very valuable opportunity, you know, for the community, for all the participants, to explore important topics where you are talking about on these next couple of hours, maybe. You know? And who doesn't know, Acquedotto Pugliese is a company that has always been committed to promoting sustainable innovation and to supporting the project to boost the technological development in our region. So it's a great moment to share this information, and I'll be happy to stay here to share with you for next hours these events. Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Acquedotto Pugliese, for welcoming us. Thank you all for coming. Who of you has already been to a PugliaTechs event? Oh, excellent. I see some hands in the air. Cool. So I'm just going to quickly introduce what PugliaTechs is and what we're going to do tonight, and then I'll hand over the stage to Marco, who will present our great speakers of the evening. So PugliaTechs is a grassroots community. What we want to do is create this community from the bottom up. We are driven by values like passionate tech enthusiasts, entrepreneurs, startup founders, and from Puglia and beyond. And why do I say from Puglia and beyond? Because we truly believe in the inventivity and the creativity of the region, but we also really understand that we live in a global world. We have at least European ambitions, and we really want to put all these people together. Our mission is to foster growth. We want to share the knowledge. We're going to networking. We want to do the hands-on events. We want to meet the people, talk to the people, share with the people, both online and offline. Obviously online, because we cannot escape the digital world, and obviously we work towards digital innovation and sustainable innovation, which is also the subject of tonight. We really truly believe that we can participate and create this tech renaissance in Puglia, because we have this global perspective, as said before, as we share with Acquedotto Pugliese, with Puglia roots. We want to put Puglia on the global tech map. Why not? We live in a world where we still need to, expand European vision and inventivity, and we think that Puglia can be one of the examples of how to do that and how to build that up. We think that we can create startups here that are globally competitive but deeply connected to Puglia, and we think that we can do that by empowering the local talent, because we think there's vast creativity and huge resilience here, and we think we can make something unique. And obviously with all the institutions here, the universities and so on, and we know there's a lot of technical expertise, so we believe this is the place to do so. We're going to drive regional innovation. That's in the end, of course, the community alone is not enough. The renaissance is not enough. We want this innovation. We want this sustainable innovation, long-lasting. It started 6 months ago, and look at what we've already achieved. We have, thanks to our major stakeholders and location hosts, we've been already at Aeroporti di Puglia, CDR Group, Physics Departments of UNIBA, Buona Sforza, and tonight this beautiful location, Acquedotto Pugliese, so we're really, really growing. And we have already 500 followers on LinkedIn, people coming every week, 200 members in our Telegram groups, we have different channels, and we really, really push the boundaries to connect and to forge these relationships in technology. We cannot do that without you guys. And it's really nice to see faces. It's really nice to see the same faces again, but we also really want to know a little bit more about you. We do our best to talk to all of you personally, but it will help us really if you could leave some of your information with us. We're not going to sell it, we're not going to misuse it, but we really want to understand who you are, why you came here, what you are looking for, so we can tailor our messages and also start really building this community. So we'd all like to ask you to scan the QR code. It will bring you to a small form where you leave some of your information, and you will help us and you to build this community. We will also show the slide again at the end of the evening, but yeah, please scan it and fill in the form. I think that is my part, Marco, isn't it? Is there more? Oh, there is something more. Okay, so how do we build this network, and what are we aiming for? Obviously, it's technology and business. You can have a good idea or a good technology, because if you don't have the business plan, you don't have the investment, it's not going to be a successful startup. So every monthly event, we combine a tech track and a business track. So there's the mix of information, bringing it all together. And oh yeah, of course, we have this federated approach as well, because we believe in the communities. We see it as an operation system. Communities, startups, and enablers. So they bring the experience, the institution. We need them for the expertise, for their experience, their vision, their strong roots. And of course, last but not least, we need investors. So we're also going to bring in the investors, local and global, but with at least some love for this beautiful region. So that is what our approach is for PugliaTechs. That's it, huh? Michael?
So, hi guys, thanks for coming today. As we mentioned before, today is going to be a mix of sustainability technologies. AI is always embedded in what we do, and actually we have someone that is going to talk about how the infrastructure is very useful and is key to actually build AI businesses as well. We're going to have startups today. We have 3 founders, early stage, I would say. Brief overview on everything from an investor perspective when we talk about sustainable technologies. So please, Francesca, come to the stage. Okay. Let me see. Oh. I need maybe some help. Does it work this way? Presentation. Okay. Sorry. Is it? Okay. Okay.
General investment in Milan. So I'm going to talk about decarbonization, and I will start from the very top and macro level of what it means for an asset manager like General Investment to achieve the net zero in the broader context of the overall economy. So to power the transition, there are 3 main drivers: policies. So we need climate policies that influence industries like energy, infrastructure, industrials, in order to set the direction of travel and the guideline to achieve it. Then there is the technology. So all the decarbonization technologies that we know and the associated cost that comes especially with the new incumbent technologies and the evolution of these costs over time. And then there are consumer preferences. So essentially the consumer, the willingness and the appetite to actually purchase green products and services and potentially pay a premium, the so-called greenium. So decision makers like investors and companies need to respond to these drivers. So for investors, it means reallocation of resources, so reshuffling the investments within the portfolio in order to identify the blue chip companies, those that are investing into decarbonization and that deliver the best risk-adjusted returns. For companies, it means to change the business model, so essentially offering new green products or phasing out old business lines or decarbonizing their operations. So all these factors need to come together and work together, possibly at the same speed, in order to achieve what the climate scientists call the orderly transition. So when we say orderly, we mean that through this transition, we want to maximize the upside, so all the positive effects like job creation, new technologies, possibly a better distribution of resources, with minimization, so minimizing the losses, so job cuts or all technologies being dismissed, and also hyperinflation. So essentially, we want to mitigate the pressure point for society and achieve the best result. So as Generali, as an asset manager, what we do, essentially we have to decarbonize our investments. But why? Because essentially the principle is that when you make an investment into a company, when you put money into a company, you become partially responsible for the CO2 emitted in the air of that company. So let's say Generali has around 600 billions of investments under management, and we have an attached carbon footprint of around 100 tons of CO2 for each million of investment that we make. So our ambition, our commitment, our goal is to drive this number to zero by 2050, so to achieve net zero by 2050. So how we do it? First, we avoid certain investments. So we withhold capital or divest. The oil market has a bearish outlook, so there is no value creation in the long term, so we don't invest. The second step is integration. Essentially, we channel our monies to companies that are green today, all the clean tech companies, or companies that are brown, so that are carbon intensive today, but have a credible transition plan for the future. For these companies, we need to integrate sustainability factors, so risks and returns, within the asset valuation and evaluation of the company. And we will see a couple examples today. Third step is engagement. So sometimes there are companies that have very good financial health, good management, but for some reason they are not ambitious enough when it comes to climate. So as investors, we start a dialogue with this company. We try to push the CEOs and all the top management to be braver and to have a more ambitious decarbonization goal, to put the money into new technologies. And as an investor, of course, it means that we increase the value of the company and we exit the investment when the return is higher. So sometimes companies are a bit hesitant and reluctant to actually make a change. So we have an escalation process from the simple engagement where we actually bargain with the company and we say we will withdraw our money if you don't decarbonize as we are requiring. And this is a very powerful conversation you can have with the company because you are leveraged by your investment. All in all, this is also called the materiality approach. Because as investors, we need to understand that today, so I'm not saying tomorrow, but today, climate ambitions and financial implications are in a trade-off relationship. So as investors, we need to prioritize only sustainability factors that we think are material for the financials of the company. Some examples. So the sectors that contribute the most to our investment portfolio emissions are the ones you will see in the slide. For example, energy. We all know that coal is the most polluting energy source in the world. So here it's simple, it's straightforward. We just want to avoid investments in coal companies. And when you invest in Europe and US, it's easier because these economies are oil-based. But when we have a portfolio that has a geographic concentration in Asia, in Australia, in China, in India, then the job is harder. Oil. Oil is the second most polluting energy source in the world. And the story is similar. We need to exit oil. Profit until there is a market. So it's really a supply and demand story, a bit of the egg and the chicken situation, where at the end, you just have emission rising. So as investor, how do you position in the oil market? This is the question. Essentially, we are betting on the timeline. So we know that the oil demand is rising, but we also know that at some point, there will be a substitution effect from renewable and alternative energy that will come into play, and it will let the oil demand to decline. The problem is that we don't know when. So investors are betting on the timeline, are making their assumptions on when this turning point will come, and they are setting their investment strategies, investment horizon on this timeline. So for instance, if I think that the oil peak demand will arrive in 2035, I will purchase a bond that has a maturity of 10 years, and I will exit my equity investments before the 10 years. So I won't go over all of these examples, but I think another interesting story is cement, so concrete. Essentially, today, we don't have a technology available to have green cement, green concrete. The only viable option we have is to produce traditional cement. Now, until now, cement companies are allowed to produce cement without capturing the CO2 from the air and without incurring in any additional cost. But things are changing because the European Union has the emission trading scheme, which will put a carbon tax on each tons of CO2 that this company will emit. So this is a massive tax mechanism that is incentivizing cement companies to actually invest but also scale the carbon capture solution. And for instance, with my team, we wanted to understand the financial implications. Cement demand. We also know that recently the German infrastructure plan means that there are incentivizing and there will be a stimulus for the cement demand. So we arrived at an estimate of 3 to 4% demand increase for Heidelberg cement up to 2030. Now, we know that higher volumes means higher CO2 emissions. So we attached a value of CO2 emissions to this rising volume. Then we subtracted the amount of CO2 that this company is capable to capture from the air, and we arrived at a gap of 11 million tons of CO2 by 2030. So this means that the leading company in the sector will have to pay a carbon tax of 11 million tons of CO2 by 2030. This is a huge operational cost for the company. So with the team, we estimated this number, we plugged it into the balance sheet of the company, and we recalculated the value of the company. But that's not the entire story, because then I met the head of decarbonization of this company in London a couple of months ago. And she told me that 30 to 60% of their carbon capture solutions are funded by the German government. So this means that, and they don't have any visibility on the expansion of these incentives in the future. So this means that by 2030, the company won't only have higher operational costs, but also higher capital costs. And I think this is a nice example, very representative of what I said before, of how policies, technology, investors, and companies really need to move at the same speed. Because here we have the technology, it's the only viable option we have to decarbonize the cement industry, but we don't have the business and investment case. And this is a very similar example, but we developed this model in partnership with Shell, so Royal Dutch Shell company, and essentially it's very similar. We stressed the balance sheet of Shell in order to understand if we push the company to be clean tomorrow, to be 1.5 aligned tomorrow, what happens? (24.4 to 63). And we did a similar exercise for the credit rating, so the risk attached to the investments into this company, which deteriorated from A+ to BBB. In other words, we need to be realistic as investors, and we need to understand there is a sweet spot between what we can ask the company to do, what is reasonable from a climate perspective, and in terms of financial implications. So now the challenges. I think I touched already on most of them, but to wrap up, so first challenge is the European policy uncertainty. Essentially, over the last 5 to 6 years, the European Union made a huge efforts to develop a lot of regulations and plans like the European Green Deal, the Fit for 55 package, and other investors regulation like CSRD, CSDR, ESMA, EU taxonomy, and we stop here. Now, the problem is that these regulations don't really speak to one another. And also, after the Draghi report on competitiveness, it's even more clear to the European Union that they have to do a better job at harmonizing the regulations and balancing decarbonization and economic interest. The European Union is doing exactly this. So now they're working on the so-called omnibus regulation. So they are working on a regulation that harmonizes everything, and it is expected to come online around December this year. So this is a positive catalyst for the industry, but there are still months of uncertainty in terms of regulation, and so it's difficult for companies and investors to make investment decisions. The second challenge is cost, and we already talked about this, but the so-called carbonomics, so the cost curve of the decarbonization technologies. The good news is that established technologies like solar panels, batteries, electric vehicles, their costs are coming down. The problem is that when we talk about heavy transport or hydrogen business and all the other type of decarbonization technologies that are called hard-to-abate sector technologies, so the ones that require more time and also more money. So to make decarbonization happen, we need to be economical. Third point is defense. It might be unusual to see a defense stock chart in a decarbonization speech, but we're seeing this trend shaping the investment priorities of many players. So essentially, the market is already pricing increased investments into the defense stock, but also after the Ukraine invasion, a lot of European defense names started to surge in the market. So essentially, they are overperforming the index, but 30 to 35% on year. At the same time, we have decarbonization investments which have very poor performance. So I don't want to say that there is a clear trade-off between defense and decarbonization, but it's plausible that today investors may choose to drive their money towards defense instead of decarbonization. Fourth aspect is geopolitical tension. So I put here the image of Trump because he has been quite vocal in being against climate change. He already halted a lot of investments into renewables. He's halted the permitting process of renewable projects in the US, and he wants to withdraw from the Paris Agreement. But on top of this, he's putting tariffs. And the problem with tariffs and decarbonization is that a lot of cheap technologies like solar panels, batteries, and electric vehicles come from China. So if we put tariffs, if Europe will do the same, our economists in general estimated that we will have 30% decarbonization cost more. So even here, we can see there is a clear link between the trade war, the geopolitical, the economics, and the decarbonization journey. I want to leave you with this message. So we will get there, we will get to net zero. We have to be hopeful, but the pace is unknown, is uncertain. And I gathered a few articles from many journals in the last months where essentially many financial players like banks, insurers, asset managers are withdrawing or delaying their climate commitments. So because of all these challenges, it might be more difficult than we thought, but we will still get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesca, for the presentation. Very insightful. We have time for only one question because we're a little bit tight on the deadlines today. So if there is a question from the crowd here, no questions. Let me just check on the YouTube channel. Do we have a question from YouTube? No. So I think we are good to go. Thanks a lot again. So the next one is going to be on essentially everything that you need.
Can you hear me? Awesome. Cool. So thank you so much for coming. CTO, well, I wish I was the CEO. The CTO and the co-founder of Bauplan. Bauplan is a Silicon Valley company. We raised more than $7 million of seed round from some of the most reputable investors on the planet. Our main backer is Innovation Endeavors, which is Eric Schmidt Fund. Eric Schmidt is the former CEO of Google. Other people in our team include Wes McKinney, the creator of Pandas. That's why I asked. Chris Re, MacArthur Fellow and Stanford Professor of AI, and a bunch of other fun folks. This is my second company, so I guess now I'm a serial entrepreneur. My first company was called Tooso. It was doing AI and NLP when it was actually still hard to do AI and NLP, not like today. This will turn out to be a useful information later. The company was acquired by Coveo, and I led AI and MLOps at Coveo from growth to IPO. And then we decided to leave the cushy jobs at a big company to found our second company. So the entire team that built the first company and sold it is the same team that started my current company, which is called Bauplan. While at Coveo, we had the chance to do a lot of cool research in open source, so we like to give back to the community while we can. And none of this would have been possible without my incredible ability to take the credits for the work that other people do. But my team and myself published more than 20 papers in 2 years. We won Best Paper in NACL, which is one of the best NLP conferences on the planet. That for such a small team is like incredible. If you know what Hugging Face is, how many people know what Hugging Face is? The second most downloaded clip model in the entire history of Hugging Face is ours. And it's been downloaded now more than 50 million times. I never took a single computer science class in my entire life, so which is perhaps surprising that I publish in almost all subfield of computer science. And I've been very lucky to work with people at Stanford, Bocconi, Netflix, NVIDIA, in information retrieval, data management, and computer systems. So enough about me. What is Bauplan? Sorry, marketing slide, but I didn't do this one. So Bauplan is a platform to basically do data and AI. It's built on 3 principles. You don't need to care about infrastructure. That's why it's serverless. It's code first. So if you're familiar with data platform today, like, I don't know, Databricks or EMR or stuff like that, a lot of people do data in notebooks. That's fantastic for a few use cases, but it's a barbaric way to actually build stuff. If you believe that this is what barbaric people do, you should come and talk to me because you're kind of ahead of everybody else. And Fun is built on S3 because we believe the future is object storage, and that's the only place in which you should actually save your data. I'm old enough to remember when AI was data and models, right? So you have some data in somewhere in your data set, and then you train your model, and then you serve your model. They used to be called MLOps in the glorious days of 2021 when VC money was free. And I'm old enough to have done all of this before that time. Maybe some of you are old enough as well. And this was all good and well, but it was actually kind of clunky and hard. There's only a few people on the planet that actually can do this well, and most of these people are like, you know, arrogant assholes like myself. They have a PhD, they cost a lot of money, and they're not very pleasant people to be around. So all this worked fine for the people that can afford this type of people, but didn't really work well for most of other folks. In fact, the entire first wave of ML and AI made rich the people that were already rich, the Netflix, the Google of this world, and almost anybody else make a dime out of this. So what happens later, you know, you can probably get familiar with this Gen AI new thing that people are talking about, is that the entire, you know, right side of this equation changed. So you still have the data. Data is still kind of the most important thing. It was before, and it's now even more. But now there's no more model. Like, nobody's training anything anymore. Nobody's even serving anything anymore. The entire intelligence that required a lot of people like myself, perhaps better, to do things now is encapsulated in an API that every idiot can call with a curl request, okay? So the hardest thing about AI, wrong. The hardest thing about AI is data. What people thought was the hardest thing about AI, which is building model, now is not a problem anymore. You can just call an API, OpenAI, Anthropic, or whatever fancy you, okay? So what does it mean that we use code? Using code at the end of the day means using Python. Python is by far the most common language on the planet for data and AI stuff. Now is actually the most common language on the planet, according to these people here. But whatever you think of it, at the end of the day, Python is the lingua franca of data, DevOps, engineering, and so on. So our equation now is like, you know, Gen AI is data plus Python. So code is, at the end of the day, just a synonym for Python. What's the problem with this? Is that Python actually sucks. So Python runtime sucks, Python dependency sucks. Generally speaking, the experience of developing with Python actually is very bad. I'm sure that many of you have developed stuff in your life, and this is the typical problem that people, oh, I don't have the pointer, but yeah. The people really have. It works on my computer. How many of you are familiar with the problem? It works on my computer, then it works. Everybody that has done any real work in his life know this problem. So since we cannot ship your computer to, you know, Jeff Bezos' data center, this is always a problem. It's okay, but you know, let's keep Python for now as a good placeholder for data for code. So what do we do with data? And you know, again, for most use cases today, data, you know, is basically synonym with S3. You know, object storage is all you need. Object storage is in the word, whatever. S3 is awesome. If some of you, who doesn't know what S3 is or blob storage? Who doesn't know? Okay, cool, awesome. Okay, but you know what a hard drive is. Okay, cool. S3 is an hard drive, but it's infinite, so it never ends, okay? And unfortunately, you can modify the file once you put it there. You can delete them, but you can change them. And that's it. That's as much as you need to know about S3. And so it's a very big hard drive, which is very good for data. Like, you have a lot of data, so you need a very, very big hard drive, okay? And to be honest, you don't need to modify data set that much if you're doing AI. So S3 is perfect. So what do we want when we do data for AI? We want things to be durable. What does it mean, durable? It means that when you save them, you know, they don't go away, right? Which is something that happens with your hard drive, for example, right? If you have hard drive, it happens to me with my thesis when I was a kid. My entire hard drive on my laptop got fried, and I lost half of my thesis, right? This doesn't happen with S3. S3 is durable. When you put stuff in S3, it's gonna be there until the end of the planet, and is automatically, how do you say, copied for you in several regions. So even if the entire North America of AWS goes down tomorrow, your S3 files are still gonna be there. But what is the problem is that compared to one hard drive you're familiar with, performance is abysmal. The typical latency of a hard drive is gonna be nanoseconds, depends on what you do. The typical latency the first time to byte on S3, is like hundreds of milliseconds, right? So you can't really read in the same way that you can read your file. And finally, unfortunately, S3 is very, very hard to version. What do I mean by that? You train a model Friday, okay, and then you go to I don't know, Otranto for the weekend. Then you get back Monday, and then you say, oh my God, nothing ever works. How can I fix that? And the secret to fixing this is making sure that you're saving the version of data that you had on Friday, because while you were on the beach, probably your data set have changed because new data was ingested in whatever system you have, and now you actually cannot do it anymore. So versioning is actually fundamental to build any data in any application. It was before, and is true now. S3 doesn't have any concept of versioning. S3, again, is an hard drive in which you can do only two things. You can save a file and you can get the file back, or you can delete it when you're tired of it. But that's kind of it. So as we've seen before, Python is great, but not out of the box. S3 for data has the same problem. S3 has the potential to be great because it gives you the hardest thing of all, which is when you save something, it never gets away, durability. But S3 is kind of hard to work if you need to work in AI. So this is where we're at. It's like, we want to do a Gen AI, we want to have files in S3, and we want to use Python. Unfortunately, if you try to do that yourself, so do not try this at home, your entire experience is gonna be miserable, okay? For the reason that I explained. Your Python is gonna suck, and it just works on your computer, and your S3 is gonna drive you mad for all the problems that I mentioned. So what is the solution to this? Do we want to give up on these goodies, right? We want to give up on the most important and most popular language of the last 10 years and on the best invention, after sliced bread? And the answer is no. The answer is we should not give up on S3 on Python. The answer is you should build on top of S3 and Python and kind of make it better. Kind of gives to S3 what S3 doesn't have by itself, and kind of make sure that your Python experience is not miserable, okay? And so the way in which you do that is by revisiting, a concept that everybody here should know. If you ever take a computer science class, which I didn't, so I don't know, but probably they told you what a table here and what a function is, okay? These are the most common object you've seen in your life as a computer scientist. Actually, if you even never taken a computer science class, you know what a table is because you probably use the dreaded software that everybody likes, which is called Excel or Google Sheet. So you know what a table is. A table is a bunch of columns and a bunch of rows, okay? And so how do we make a table in S3? The answer is surprisingly long, and we can't really go into this, but I can promise you that you can make tables out of S3, and you gain two things. You gain efficiency through what is called pushdowns, okay? If any of you took a database class long time ago, know what a pushdown is. What is a pushdown? When you want to read data for AI, what you really want is to read data, typically, in a certain time window. You really don't want to read, the entire history of the SP500 from 1972 or whatever it was created. You typically are more interested in reading that from, like a specific time window. You can do this in two ways. You can check file by file and check, is this file containing the year that I want it to be? Or you can do pushdowns. So you can actually go and get directly the bytes in this gigantic hard drive that's called S3 that correspond to the year that you want. And if you have a table out of S3, you can actually do that. And so what about functions? Functions have the very, very cool properties that everybody knows what a function is, and it's very easy to build complex things with functions. How do we build the complex things out of a simple element? We combine them. The way in which complexity is built is through combining atomic things that are very easy and simple to understand, but then you chain them together. Now you have a DAG. Now you have thousands of nodes based on states that we can actually understand, okay? And so the way in which we make your function better is by not building them in your computer because of the problem that we mentioned before, okay? So if you run things directly in the cloud, things are gonna be much more simpler, because there's no it works on my computer problem because it never worked on your computer in the first place, right? And you're gonna have much better performance. When you work with data and AI, one of your biggest bottleneck is gonna be the bandwidth, which is a problem that is very dear to my heart when I moved from the United States to Italy, and my fiber actually gets much, much slower, okay? So if you try to build data and AI on your laptop, if you try to do S3 and functions naively, you're gonna be killed by bandwidth. Doesn't matter how smart you are, doesn't matter how good your code is, the time you're gonna wait for the data to go from it was like Virginia, and when the data center of Amazon is, to your laptop, it's just gonna kill any productivity. But if I move those functions in Virginia, next to where the data is, now you're gonna get full AWS bandwidth into that. And it's gonna be like literally like the span of a second. If you try Bauplan today, you can read tens of millions of rows in a few seconds directly from the cloud. So how does it look like? So some of you code, so hopefully, so for everybody else, the fun part is done. So sorry about this. For people that actually understand code, this is a bit more of a zoom in what the experience look like. This is about Bauplan. So this is actually proper Bauplan syntax, but it doesn't really matter. This talk is not really about Bauplan. It's about how you build, what are the building blocks? What are the Lego? If you go to the Lego shop for infrastructure, what are the Lego blocks that you need to build the solution? And this is the Lego blocks, okay? So this is a Python function, again, no, there's no tricks here, nothing is hidden. So the normal Python function. There's a few things here you may or may not have seen somewhere else, but I'm willing to bet some money that even if you've never seen them before, you can immediately know what that means. So for example, this decorator here that you slap on top of a function that you may have written is like 3.11. Somebody wants to guess what 3.11 means? So Python, somebody can guess what this argument means. Exactly. Including Pandas 2.0. So again, thanks Wes for inventing Pandas and for giving some money. So cool, yeah, sure. You never seen Bauplan, this is very easy, right? So it's like, yeah. So first lesson, we want to work with abstraction that a person out of school can actually master without any cognitive overhead. My typical user, when I have in mind, my user can be very advanced, but I don't assume anything of the user that I cannot ask to my students at NYU, okay? So if my students at NYU don't understand it, it may be too complex. So first, you may not know what a container is, but you definitely know what pip is, so pip is fine. Again, you may not know what a data lake, Parquet, Iceberg, or Hive are, okay, but you know what a table is, okay? And this is a table, so this is the second thing you haven't seen, okay? The argument that this function takes as input is a table. It's called Bauplan model, but doesn't really matter. It's a taxi table, if you're familiar with the famous or infamous taxi data set. These are columns, and this is the push down, okay? I'm sure you've never seen this, but you can guess by this that you want some taxi stuff, you want these 3 columns, and you want only the rows that correspond to this date, okay? And then finally, your business logic, okay? Again, you can import pandas, you can do whatever transformation you want to do, okay? Again, if you've never seen Bauplan, or you've never seen the cloud, which is kind of harder to imagine, but if you've never seen the cloud, you should still be able to parse this without anything else. How do you make a pipeline? You chain one function to the other. That's all there is. All there is to make data and AI is chaining functions and abstract away the infrastructure. And the reason why you don't think that's possible is because most of people are surrounded by merchant of complexity. By people that thrive in selling you dozens of services like AWS and Databricks and other people that thrives and gives you things that are overly complicated and makes you believe that you need 25 data engineers to actually start with AI. That's false. You need 25 engineers if you don't know what you're doing, or if you don't like abstractions, or God forbids if you develop with notebook in production. This was the function, so how you run things. But there's a second important thing that happens with code, right? That people in data kind of struggles with. And it's the fact that code needs to be tested in production, okay? this is the Bauplan SDK. Again, this is real code. It's not like simplified in any way. This is actually what you use, okay? And a cool thing about this, like sequence, is that you can create branches of your data with a simple command. What is a branch? Sorry, everybody's familiar with Git. Who knows what Git is? Awesome, cool. So this is Git for data. So instead of versioning your code, we're versioning your entire data lake. And for exactly as for code, now you can do branch, run whatever code you want to run, merge when you're happy, and then inspect the commits. All of this is scriptable. All of this makes data and AI exactly as your code. Why is it important to branch your code instead of having a developer environment? Because developing with data that is developing data actually sucks. You know, you're gonna never have data in sync. The data, the tests that you run are never gonna be proper. So you can run in production directly. So you need to run on a branch of production, which is the same thing you do with code. You don't develop on toy code. You develop on the real code, but just on a branch. That's the same thing you do with it as well. Finally, and we're gonna finish with these incredibly underdeveloped thoughts. I'm just gonna leave you with something that is more about the future, that's just the past. So who's very good at understanding abstractions like tables and functions? Because they're so simple. Who's very good at that? My students at NYU, sure, but who's also very good at that? Because the AI is very good at that, right? AI is miserable at doing a lot of stuff, especially if they're complex. Like try to use AI to write SQL queries, for example. But if you make the problem small enough, and if you make the assumption simple enough, even a model today can actually do it, okay? So this is an example. When you put all of this together, you have some data in your S3, because remember, S3 rules. And then you can ask, hey, can you fix it? And then the AI can write it again. And before you merge it back, you can check again. So that gives the AI the freedom to do mistakes and to iterate on that, because you are on a branch. So nobody's bothered until you decide that what you did is actually the actual thing that you need to do that, okay? So most people are worried, and they're right, that if they unleash AI on their code base, it's gonna be a disaster, correct? What's the solution to this? Don't use AI? Nope. The solution to this is use AI, but make sure that AI doesn't bother anybody else, and data branches are the way in which you do that. So this, again, this is actual, real prompt that you can send to OpenAI today. You're a very skilled data engineering. This is the code that failed. This is the tables that actually I got. And this is the result. I don't know if this is ever going to work. Is this ever going to work? Maybe. So when you run this, you actually get that the system will create a temporary branch, which, by now we know what it is, okay? We're going to call OpenAI, which is going to take a bit to figure out all of this thing for us. And then, did I stop it? One second. Can I? At least I could use my computer to do that. But yeah, the point is, you can try and do all of this together, and you can put the pieces together. And the fundamental point that I want to drive home here is two things. One is simple abstractions are good because simple abstraction can be understood by a student at NYU and by AI without cognitive overhead. And if you think you need a complex abstraction to do data pipelines, 99% of the time is because you're kind of like not thinking about this enough, okay? Oh, this is the code, you write the code, now you can run it and blah, blah. The second thing is you should develop with data in production. The only way to do data stuff is in production, but you should not unleash AI or even your junior engineer on your production data without guardrails. And the best way to do this is by branching your lake. You branch your data, you do whatever you need to do, and you can always go back in case somebody makes a terrible mistake, whether you or the AI, okay? So this is me. If you want to talk about me, about startup, especially if you have global ambitions. So I'm always happy to help young entrepreneurs or tech, or what's the best sushi restaurants in Manhattan or anything like that. You can reach out to me later today, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm very easy to find. If you want to learn more about Bauplan, please send me a message. I'm super happy to take a longer call and explain you a bit more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jacopo, for the presentation. I think it was very interesting to create kind of a bridge between, moving from sustainable technologies to you want to run something leveraging AI. Well, Jacopo would actually power your business. We're tight on time. So if you have a question, we have time for one question, unfortunately. Questions?
You can't ask worse questions than my students, so don't be shy. There's no such a thing as a stupid question.
Let me just ask from, no? Okay, so I guess we can say again, thank you very much for your presentation. And so let's move now to the the key aspect for us, talking about technology products. So let me start with Alessandro on the stage to talk about his company. He's the CEO of Green Independence, which is a company from Puglia in Brindisi, right? Nearby. And so, please, the stage is yours. Yeah, and the clicker is here.
Heat and electricity with zero emission, both from the production and the usage of hydrogen. And hydrogen, in fact, has a growing demand, and on the other side, the CO2 needs to be reduced strongly. The only problem with hydrogen is the fact that it's still too expensive to compete with fossil fuel. And we try to address that. Starting from one asset that we all have. Can you hear me now? It's okay, okay. Which covers 71% of our planet, which is water. But water is an asset, but is also a great liability, since more than 2 billion people around us suffers of the water scarcity problem, and most of the water, the fresh water, is still used from corporation and agriculture in a non-sustainable way. The only solution that right now we have is desalinization, but it's still too expensive and also energetically expensive, and so it adds on the problem. And we have to work together to find a solution. So how we do help hydrogen and desalinization with one solution. We are creating a new solution called New Artificial Leaf, which is a multifunctional solar panel that embeds solar energy, water desalination, and green hydrogen into one unique solution that, first of all, transform water desalinization into an energy positive process, and I'm about to say to you how. And the second, we are bringing down the cost of levelized cost of hydrogen down to €1 per kilogram, making it really a competitive solution compared to fossil fuel. How does it work? We start from this 80%, which is the average energy wasted from PV panels. So PV panels receive 100%. We are desalinating 1 cubic meter of water. We are actually producing 20 times the energy normally needed from reverse osmosis to desalinate the same amount of water. Last but not least, we add a layer of an electrochemical cell, an electrolyzer, into the system that uses a fraction of the water that we have desalinated and all the solar energy available to make green hydrogen local. And so we lower the levelized cost of hydrogen to make it really a competitive solution with fossil fuel. This opens up a huge market opportunity, $1 trillion market. We are starting to addressing first B2B sectors, for example, utilities, all the hard-to-abate sectors mentioned before, and transportations. We offer a solution that is an original equipment manufacturing approach, so we sell the hardware, we don't sell the hydrogen, we don't sell the water, we sell the asset to make green hydrogen and clean water available. And we successfully completed 2 proof of concept, one of which with SNAM. The other one is a pilot project that we are currently developing and deploying with a commercial player of 100 square meters that will be available before the summer. We successfully collected more than 20 letters of support and interest, even from the water solution part by the end of this year, the beginning of next one. The full system, including the hydrogen, by the end of 2026, beginning of 2027, and creating 100 million revenue per year before 2030, thanks to only 25 hectares of solar installation per year. 25 hectares of installation, if you are in solar, is a very small amount. This I can jump. I don't want to bother you with all these numbers. I want to tell you about why we can reach that number, why we can sell 25 hectares, so 100 million of assets per year, because we are the only one that is providing a low-cost, high-accessibility solution, because we can install our technology even where other technology cannot, so not only inside industrial perimeters, but also outside along infrastructures. And also we are the only one that is combining water solution and hydrogen technology into one unique product. We have an amazing team behind this project. I'm not alone, and we have a very to build the manufacturing capacity necessary to deploy the first product to the market. And we'll also unlock a very interesting grant from the Puglia region of 20 million to even expand faster and better globally. Thank you for your time. These are all the grants that we took and all the grants that we plan to take, but it's kind of boring. I'm here for your question, and more important, on Monday, so Monday 24th of March in Brindisi, we are having an event where we deploy our first panels to the public, and we open officially our seed round. You are all invited. Talk to me to get the invitation, and it will be a very interesting experience with all stakeholders around sustainability. And we thanks for PugliaTechs for having us.
Thank you very much, Alessandro. We are gonna have we have to skip the questions, but I'm sure that it's gonna be very interesting to talk to you. And the other angle that I guess the speculative minds like me are thinking is that there is actually a real estate opportunity because you need less space. So that's very interesting. But anyway, let's go to the next next speaker. We have actually now a stealth company presenting. We are one of the
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Yeah, stealth, like also the most early stage in the room, since we are not yet incorporated. Of all this could be energy storage, and especially electrochemical energy storage. As we know, batteries, supercapacitor, and devices like that are really energy intensive. Bad stuff like organic solvent, PFAS, which are be banning in Europe and all over the world, actually. And we are here to transform this paradigm and try to make this a natural thing. So they are everything but not natural, and we want to use natural materials, circular materials, innovate the device fabrication, and develop a portfolio of products as we are doing right now. We started to target this problem in the device, which is common to a number of architectures and chemistries in energy storage, which is the current collector, basically an aluminum foil, also a copper foil. And even if we are able to decarbonize the whole structure by 2030, we have a baseline of emission due to this component, which is that number. We developed, by the way, $2 billion when we will be almost ready for our production, which are carbon-coated aluminum foil. Trying to be not just greener, but also proposing a product which is lighter, cheaper, at least in the material cost baseline, and has mechanical properties of flexibility and chemical resistance in some particular chemistry. This is what we have done so far. We scaled up our electrode. We demonstrated the TRL5 supercapacitor prototype. Supercapacitor is a kind of battery. In the architecture is very similar. We already tested in batteries, lithium-ion batteries concept, the same materials. The performance are great. We are trying to scale it up. This started in 2023 by proof of concept funding from Tech for Planet from Cassa Depositi e Prestiti. Yeah, we in 2024 we basically filed our patent application, took part to business plan competition, like a startup. Try to start at least in Italy. We won the National Prize for Innovation. Okay, but now we are incorporating, and we are already having some good results from an external tech validation and raising our pre-seed round of 1.2 million. An ambitious roadmap with the go-to-market in the mid of 28. For the moment, we have a mixed business model that goes through production and sale of the electrode while making some proof of concept with potential customer in the meantime. Great team, at least for these initiatives. So a lot of PhDs, a lot of research with a quite decent experience in business creation and very first steps of venture building. We believe we can bring this to the market and of course always happy to join this event, looking partners to have the impact we aim to. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Paolo. So now we go to the last speaker. We have now an enterprise pitching a water solution. We have Andrea, which is a machine learning engineer. Should I say senior lead? I don't know exactly the title, but anyway, machine learning engineers talking about the NTT water management solution. So Andrea, the stage is yours. Okay. Want to use this or?
Okay. Hello everyone, I'm Andrea Pazienza, and today I want to tell you two stories that have become two main assets in sustainability solution in NTT data, ranging from natural capital preservation to smart water management. Let's start with Selva, that is the answer that we are going to show to the challenge of carbon credits. It is developed with Zero CO2, our partner, and with the AI algorithms integrates satellite data and ground data to transform soil and trees data to produce carbon credits, detect and produce carbon credits. This methodology allows to monitor 500,000 hectares of land worldwide by 2028 and generates 200,000 carbon credits by this year. The fact is that it is not only carbon measurement, but the Selva wants to recognize value because if a business is going to purchase a carbon credit, which, just to recall, it represents the amount of tons of CO2 that is removed from the atmosphere. So when a business purchases a carbon credit, they want to know what they are going to invest. So we sell just a genuine, how can I say it, a genuine improvements in land conservation. Moreover, the methodology follows the ISO standard 14064 and with also earning certification from the Plan Vivo Foundation, we can ensure that our carbon credits are of high quality. This slide tells how a landowner can monitor his land by highlighting within a map the status of the trees on his land and the eligibility to produce carbon credits initiatives. Moreover, there is a dashboard in which the landowner can monitor the carbon credits he is generating and the amount of revenues is also generating. But Selva builds also a sustainable cycle of economic growth in which the 40% of revenues are shared with local communities. The second story is on water management, given this beautiful location. So Symphony is a digital pervasive system in which 40,000 kilometers of water network are serving 6 million people over 2,000 districts. And integrating several multiple data streams like IoT devices, SCADA systems, and the GIS platform, they are integrated into a single intelligent platform which aims at reducing water losses with real-time monitoring of the water network status. And with the predictive analytics, we can also optimize maintenance and therefore give a reliable and resilient and sustainable solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you. I wanna, though we have a little bit tight on time, so we don't have time for the questions, but I wanna just leave a few messages. First of all, thank you. First of all, I want to thank again Acquedotto for hosting us today. I mean, location-wise is fantastic. I think obviously the theme that we touched base today were pretty much in line, I guess, with the mission of Acquedotto being an innovative company. I want to thank everyone that is involved from PugliaTechs, all the members, all the builders, everyone involved in making these events interesting and hopefully successful for a bigger crowd. And then, of course, I want to thank all of you guys that you are spending time coming to these events to learn something, to meet new people in the tech space. So what we are trying to do, and we just post again this slide, is about in a community, you stick to a community when you get value. So in order to get value, we need to know a little bit more about what you're looking for. You're looking for new opportunities, new job, investors. You want to sell IT services or legal services, whatever is your definition of value. It's not just, again, about joining a community just for the sake of it, but it's very, very important that you actually get value from it. So that's why what we did is a simple form where we collect information about, you are a developer, a data scientist, entrepreneur, a professor, whatever is your background. And we just want to know, what you're looking from it, and just, very quick and basic information. And the idea, because we are technologists, is that the community has to create the matches, right? So you want to really match interest between members. And we're going to use agentic AI to make it work. So let's say, give a super simple example. You are an entrepreneur here. Alessandro pitched today about his fundraising. Well, we have investors in this network that could actually match his needs without any fees, right? So this is a community, a no-profit community. This is the goal. Or you are developers looking for a job. What are the companies that are innovative in AI if you want to work in AI? We want to make these matches very, very easy. So this is really my final message. So again, thanks again for coming. We have another half an hour for networking here in the event, and probably we're going to have a drink somewhere nearby. So again, thanks a lot for being here today.